Okay, today you're going to make a foldable, and you're going to make properties foldable. So what you need is the piece of cardstock that I gave you. You need a pencil, you need a marker, you need some scissors, and a ruler, and in your notebook you should have something with all of the property names on it. It probably looks like this. You can also use the notes that we did in class as well, where you wrote down the properties and all of the examples. Okay, pause the video if you need to go get that stuff. Alright, welcome back. So what you're going to do to start off with is you're going to fold your paper. And you're not going to fold it completely in half, because if you fold it completely in half, you've just covered up your holes and now it doesn't fit in your binder properly. So you're going to just cover it so that your holes are still visible, so it should look just like this. Okay? Now you're going to have 10 flaps. You could measure out your 10 flaps if you want to, but it's all going to be just over an inch a little bit. So I found that if you just trace your ruler, and I'm going to start at the bottom. If you just trace your ruler just like that, you just trace it, because your ruler is just a little bit of an inch wide, a little bit wider than an inch. So just trace this, and then you're going to get those 10 flaps just like that. And that's where you're going to end up cutting. So right now I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then here's my 6th one. 7, 8, and then there's my 9th and my 10th. And if you start at the bottom and go up, the top flap is just going to be a little bit smaller, which is fine because we're just going to write the word properties on the outside here. So you're going to go ahead and cut your foldable. So when you cut it, you do not want to cut it like that, because then you're going to have a really floppy foldable. You're just going to cut it along those cuts that you made, just like this. You're going to cut like that, and then like that. Okay, so you might want to pause the video for just a minute so that you can finish cutting yours, because I'm not going to make you watch me cut it all, okay? Alright, when you come back, you should have something like this. Oh, look, mine changed color. I just grabbed another one that I've already cut. So you now have 10 flaps. Alright, on the top flap, you are going to write the word properties, just like so. Properties. Okay, properties. Now properties are those rules in math. So that's actually what we're going to write on the inside, but more, they're the rules of addition and multiplication. Okay, so we're going to say that in the inside these are the rules of addition and multiplication. That's what you're going to put on the inside for properties, just so that you know, in case you forget what properties mean. Alright, now on the outside, what I want you to do is I want you to take some examples. Alright, you want to take one example of each property that's on your list. You're not going to put the names of the properties on the outside, you're going to put the examples, okay? And I want you to mix them up. Don't put them completely in order, alright? So, let's mix them up a little bit. I'm going to start with an associative, okay? Now, I would pick one of the harder examples. You can even make one of your own examples. So, what you have is the associative property. So you want to come up with something. I'm going to do addition this time. So let's say I've got 2x plus y plus 5c. And remember, associative property, the property does not change order. So let's say that 2x and y are associating with each other right now. And that's going to be the same thing as if you have it in the same order, 2x plus y plus 5c, and then you're going to put y and 5c in the order. That's the associative property. Now on the inside, I want you to write the word associative, but then we're also going to write the key thing about associative that's important, which is grouping changes. So on the inside, I'm going to write here the associative property of addition. So that was the associative property of addition. And I'm going to write over here to help me that this is grouping changes. Okay? Grouping changes. Alright? So that's going to be your helpful hint. On the next one, let's pick another property like the zero product property. Zero product is when you multiply by 0, your result is 0, right? So let's say I have something like 2 times x times y to the 3rd power, z to the 10th power. It doesn't matter what that is. If I multiply it by 0, that result is just going to be 0. And the same is true if you multiply by 0 first. It doesn't matter. the result is 0. So then on the inside we're going to write, oh, that's the zero product property. Zero product property. Okay, now the key thing about zero product property is multiplying by 0. So on the inside here you're going to write multiply by 0. And the helpful hint there for multiply by 0 is that it says zero product. The word product means multiply, and the word 0, you know what that means, multiply by 0. Really easy. When you multiply something by 0, your result is always 0. Okay? So you have here now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more properties to do on your own. I don't want you to steal mine. I want you to come up with ones on your own, okay? You're coming up with one of each one of these things, okay? However, I will help you a little bit as to the key words for each of these. You have notes in your binder. If you're not catching my keywords, you can get these notes from your binder. They're right there, okay? So if you look at your list, the additive inverse, when you put your additive inverse property on the outside, on the inside, your additive inverse, your clue there is adding the opposite. The word inverse is opposite, so you add the opposite, okay? Multiplicative inverse. Multiplicative inverse is that multiplication property where you are multiplying by the reciprocal. So you take a fraction or even a whole number, and then it's reciprocal, you flip it. So like 3 times y 1/3 equals 1. When you multiply by the reciprocal, every time your result will always be 1. Like 2/3 times 3/2, your result is going to be 1. Okay, so that's multiplicative inverse. The associative property of multiplication, same thing, your grouping changes. Same thing as the addition, except this time it's going to be you're associating things that are being multiplied together. So your whole property should be multiplication, except you're changing the grouping, or who the numbers are associating with, inside the parentheses. Order never changes here. Okay, that's the associative property. We just did one of addition. The zero product property I've already done with you. The additive identity property. Additive identity is when you add 0 to a number. The identity doesn't change. The word identity is really important. Identity is like who you are, what it is, right? A number's value or identity does not change when you add 0 to it. So that's your key word there. Identity plus 0 means that you get that same thing back. Okay? Multiplicative identity is when you multiply a number by 1. So multiplicative identity, multiply a number by 1. The identity doesn't change. So your little clue inside here could just be multiply by 1. Okay? So when you look at a property, you can say to yourself, oh, I'm multiplying by 1. My result is the same thing I started with. That's identity. Identity doesn't change. And then we've got commutative property of addition and of multiplication. The commutative property is changing order. The word commutative starts with CO, change order. So anytime you change the order around an addition sign, it's the commutative property of addition. Anytime you change the order around a multiplication sign, that is the commutative property of multiplication. So your little clue inside here could just be change order. All right, so when you are finished with yours, you should have a finished product. That looks very similar to this, where when you're done, you open it up, where I have my thing, 8x times 1 equals 8x. On the inside, that's the identity of multiplication. And you should have your little clue inside there for identity of multiplication. I'm going to put multiply by 1. So that's what would be what I would put here, multiply by 1. Okay? So you are on your own. Use your own examples. Make some up if you want. You're welcome to use mine. Just change them up just a little bit, just the numbers. Okay? Good luck.